All right, I'm live again. Had a week off from the show, but not from work because that's why I didn't have a show last week. But it looks like we're going to be good for the next 4 or 5 weeks anyway. So we should be able to enjoy that. Been getting a few things done around the place, a few other things. That's one of them. I'll explain him in a little bit. And over the next few weeks, I got some time off coming. I do have an idea of what I want to do, but I'm not going to make any actual plans, and I'm certainly not going to say anything about having any actual plans because that is proven to be the one thing that'll guarantee that it never happens. But anyway, uh, got a couple of things I wanted to show you. First of all, this. If you remember this winch that I got, I guess it's been a year ago or so now. I got this winch and I wanted to use that for pulling my well pump when it goes bad because it goes bad every few years. Anyhow, I got that all cleaned up and painted, and I think it turned out pretty good. Had to make a handle for it. Had some old ball bearings around, so I got a nice ball bearing handle. Actually, I think what that is, this was on there when I got it. I think that's a crank for a grate shaker for a wood stove, and somebody brazed a little piece of steel to it, tried to make a handle out of it, and I finished it. But anyway, got that all cleaned up and painted. Put a couple of grease zerks on there to keep it all greased up. And the best thing, makes that really cool straight cut spur gear noise that straight cut spur gears make. Anyway, let me go back through the comments a little bit here. Let's see here. See who all is around. Quite a few comments. You guys have been busy while I've been out wandering about. Let's see here. We got Raymond here, all the way back at 6:47 a.m. Good Lord, man. Jim 44. Nice to see Jim. He's around. Forgot it was Tuesday until you saw something about it. Cynthia Wesley, Cast Iron Restore, Rocket Caver. Anybody else see the 3-year Lodge number 7 on eBay that went for $1,575? No, I've seen pictures of them in books, but I haven't actually seen one. And yeah, they are pretty scarce. They go for good money when they come around. I don't know what all sizes they made. Well, apparently number 7, but I don't think they made more than a few sizes and a few skillets. Like I said, they're pretty scarce. On the huge BSR that Steven had. No, I didn't see the video with his great big BSR skillet. What would you use for a heat source on something like that? The really big pans, 18, 20, 24 inches, were called hotel skillets because they were made for hotel restaurants, commercial kitchens, that sort of thing, back in the early 1900s, and they were usually used on a wood stove, usually coal for something like that. I don't have it handy, but in that reprint of the 1893 Majestic catalog, they have stoves that are about 3 of mine. They have 3 ovens in them, 2 fireboxes. They'll have an oven, a firebox, an oven, a firebox, and about an 8-foot long top on them, about 3 foot wide. And yeah, that's where you would use really huge pans like that, is on old commercial flat top stoves, like a cook stove. And on a cook stove, that's where, even, more normal size big pans, like 14, 15 inch skillets, that's where they really shine, is on something like that, because it'll heat the entire pan, where if you try and use something like that, even on a fairly big burner, the pan's going to be a lot bigger than the burner. So, flat top commercial stove or a wood stove is where you'd use great big skillets like that. Speaking of wood stoves, Billy Lee, Corey Clark, Mike Washburn, Daniel Barrett, nice to see you guys. Northeast Vermonter is in here. Rocket Caber, I think I mentioned. George Lewis, Bookworm. Let's see who else we got. Granny Graham, George Lewis. I mentioned George a couple of times, I think. Chris Salverson. Nice to see you, Chris. 2 minutes to showtime. Well, now I know when that comment was made. Let's see. Chris McGee, howdy. Well, pictures in the chat would be handy. Yeah, that'd be. I can see where it'd get out of hand real fast on a lot of channels, though, but it would be kind of nice if you could post pictures in the chat. I mean, even posting links. Oh, Hub's on the board. Good to see you, Hubs. Even posting links, randomly, you're letting anybody post links, kind of gets to be troublesome, but, they'd be nice, but I can see where there'd be a pretty good chance of it getting abused. RT Scott, he's got all his cast iron cleaned and seasoned. Well, at least somebody does. Certainly not me. Pat Z, good to see Pat. Can't seem to find much info online or in the books on flat bottom kettles. They're out there. I mean, there's usually one or two mentioned. I mean, in the books, they'll show that everybody, pretty much everybody made flat bottom kettles. BSR, Lodge, Wagner. I've got a couple of flat bottom Wagners from the early 1920s. A little bit earlier than that, actually, I think they are. I'd have to look and see what logo they got. But they are nice. I like them because they work a lot better on a regular stove nowadays, for one thing, or in the oven even. But where most of the kettles, the three-legged round bottom kettles, are kind of a pain in the oven unless you put a cookie sheet or something under them. Those you can just throw them in the oven like a Dutch oven, only they're quite a bit deeper. And if you want to make soup or something like that, they're real nice for you can brown up your meat and your veggies and that sort of thing before you dump your broth and noodles in with it. And I really like them, but they were a decent seller, but I guess a lot of people kind of went with a Dutch oven instead, or a big regular round bottom kettle. But everybody made them. I mean, I've seen Wagner's and Griswold's, and pretty much every manufacturer out there has made flat bottom kettles. So, I'm kind of surprised that there isn't more information on them. David Dykes. Hubs on the ground gave me $2. That was nice of you, Hubs. Let's see who else here. Get caught up. Shop on the auction sites. Can you explain why folks bid early? Everything always happens in the last seconds. Once in a while, I mean, if you can put a bid in early, sometimes nobody else bids on it. And, or if you're going to only pay so much for something, most auction sites have a maximum bid feature where it'll automatically raise your bid if somebody else bids up to your set maximum. So if you're going to pay $40 for something, you figure nobody else is going to bid it up higher than 20, 25. You can put in a $40 bid on it right away and just kind of ignore it, unless it's something you really, really want to have, or something that there's going to be a lot of competition for, where everybody's going to bid at the last second, hoping to, sniper everybody else. But, there is some sense to bidding early. Or for something you figure, well, if I get it for $30, great. If I don't, it's no big deal. And sometimes you're just not going to be around or able to keep an eye on things, so you put a bid in early too. Yeah, I do that once in a while, sometimes, and sometimes I'll wait until the last second and try and steal the bid away from somebody else. Let's see. Working on a little bit more here. Almost caught back up. Missed me so much last week. The whole gang did. Yeah. Well, like I said, I'll be good for the next 4 or 5 weeks, I think. I got to double check, but I know it's going to be a pretty good run for a while. Johnny Waring from Arkansas says hi. Hi, Johnny. When are you going to invite another guest? Some of the group have mentioned cool pans. I know I'd love to see. I should do that. Tell you what, let's figure out doing that next week. I'll have an open panel. I'll put the join link if you got something you want to show off or something you got questions about. You can come on the show. StreamYard's real easy. I'll put the link up. All you have to do is click on the link. If you have a webcam and a microphone, plug those in before you click on the link. Sometimes it won't recognize it if you plug them in after you start getting into the StreamYards thing. I've done it from a phone a couple of times, but I couldn't tell you how. But it is pretty easy to do it from a phone too. So it's fairly simple, and it walks you through pretty much everything you need to know. And you don't have to join StreamYards to come on somebody else's stream. Get out of here, mosquito. And you don't, like I said, you don't have to join StreamYards to just to be on a stream. So yeah, we'll do that next week. That sounds like a real good idea. I wonder if you use those 20-inch skillets would fit on a Weber kettle grill. Yeah, I bet they would. They would fit, something like that would fit on a grill. The thing is with the vintage hotel skillets, they're pretty scarce. I mean, they were a commercial item, so they didn't make nearly as many as they would compared to household items. So they're pretty scarce. There's a lot of demand for them. If it's marked, Griswold or Wagner and has a mark on it, it's going to go for a lot of money. But like Cabela's, Old Mountain, some of those companies do make, 16, 18-inch skillets. I mean, even 20-inch, I think. Ozark Trail, I think, makes like a 20-inch, or maybe it was Tech Sport. They're all pretty similar. They're made more for camping. But I know there are some really big skillets out there that are fairly expensive. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure they would fit on a Weber grill. At least one of the bigger ones, anyway. Bought 2 pieces of cast iron. They both have lead in them. Well, that's the shits. There's not really much you can do about, something that has lead in it. I don't know of a safe way to remove the lead. If it was something with lead paint, you might be able to get away with, stripping the paint and disposing of it properly, of course. But, something that's been used for melting lead, I don't really know how you can get rid of that. Speaking of lead, I know last time we were on, somebody wanted me to show them what lead residue on cast iron looks like again. And I actually brought my pot out. You see that? Get a little different angle. That kind of whitish, powdery residue in there. There's a couple of spots of actual lead slag stuck to it yet. You tend to get that on things that have been used for lead. And you can tell that it's been exposed to fairly high heat. It's got that, it's more than surface rust. It looks like a really, deeply ingrained rust, which is what it really is. And, that's an actual lead melting pot. You can usually spot them. They're thick, they're heavy. They'll have a big wide foot ring on the bottom to keep them from tipping over. And they'll usually have a pretty heavy bale on them, because something like that, that's about 25 pounds when you got it full of lead. So they're usually a pretty heavy duty item. Shipping costs usually the deal breaker. Yeah, the shipping can be and it's kind of gone up here. I noticed the last couple of months there seem to be some locations that really spiked the prices on their shipping. I don't know if it's FedEx screwing around or exactly what's going on, but there's something happening. Papa Dan, good to see you. Found a Lodge hammered chicken fryer last week. Ah, cool. Yeah, Cynthia, somebody mentioned earlier Stephen Strawn had got himself a monster skillet. I haven't seen the video yet. I'm kind of behind on my video watching. Anyway, cooked on top of a kerosene heater last winter with a big cast iron and had heat. Yeah, that definitely worked. I mentioned before, speaking of wood stoves and got sidetracked, it's getting to be about that time of year to start cleaning up the wood stove and getting that ready. It's going to be in the 90s next week, so it isn't going to be any time real soon. But before long, we'll be back to cooking on the wood stove and playing around with that. Of course, that means I got to finally get around to organizing all the stuff that I've just sat there and piled on the damn thing over the summer. But yeah, and there's one little repair I want to make. There's a little bad spot in the sheet metal in the front, and it kind of lets ash sift down into the oven. So once I get it cleaned out and get the maintenance done for another season, I'll probably try and do a video when I get around to repairing that. Shouldn't be overly difficult. I definitely gravitate towards pans with an outside heat ring. Do you think they should come back? Yeah, I like them too. They tend to, usually with an outside heat ring, it's a little bit bigger and it'll sit down better on an electric burner. And, so it gets right down on the burner, where with inside heat rings, a lot of time they'll be just small enough that'll hold the bottom of the pan up off the burner, so it takes longer to heat up. Anyhow, like I said, there's a couple of things I wanted to show you. I showed you my fancy winch. I'm tickled to death the way that turned out. It really looks nice. But I got this, it just came in today. Another piece of a combo cooker. Of course, it doesn't fit any of the other pieces I have, but I only paid $9 for it, and the shipping wasn't too bad on it. I think the shipping is only like 14 or 15, so $25 for that thing. It's a little bit bigger than the skillet tops I have, but the shape of it is a lot more similar to the Johnson, the John Johnson skillet lids that you see. You see a fair number of them, but it's really hard to find the other two pieces. There should be a pot, and then there's kind of a deepish, more of a skillet type section on top, and then that skillet lid. But the Johnson doesn't have ears like that, but it's got a pretty similar shape to it, and it's got the Johnson has a little bit wider band on it, but it would have the two little loop handles like that. So, like I said, eventually I'll find something that fits this. Most of these combo cookers weren't marked, like the John C. Johnson ones. The skillet part, the lid, was marked, but the other two parts weren't. And there were several people that made them. There's a couple of different types, a couple of different styles, a few different sizes. Like I said, this one's a little bit bigger around than the other stuff I have. So it'll take me a while, and eventually I'll find something that fits this. That's kind of the fun of, trying to put together sets of these combo cookers, because it's real hit or miss. I mean, something that looks like it should fit doesn't. Something that looks, that's going to be the other part to that, and it isn't. But eventually you do end up, if you accumulate enough junk, eventually something will fit together. But I'm tickled with that, and there's no markings that I can see on the bottom. And pretty unlikely that there are, even after I get it cleaned off. So, but that's just kind of the nature of those things. And this, I really wanted to show you this. I am tickled to death with this. It's a Wagner square skillet. See? Pretty cool, eh? You're not impressed? You should be. Day before yesterday, this was two separate pans. Now, the sharp-eyed among you might notice that handle doesn't quite look right. That's because it isn't. That is what the handle on a Wagner square skillet should look like. It's got the little thumb rest there, squared off on the end, pretty good little curve to it. It's actually a bit shorter than this handle. This handle came off a Wagner 1891. Looks about right, a little different. You can see a little bit of the old thumb rest there. I got this in a, with a bunch of other things. The handle had been broken off and somebody ground the end around. But this is going to be in the first welding cast iron repair video that I'm going to do. I already filmed the welding part and the shaping and all of that. All I have to do is season this and film a conclusion of the video. So that'll be out before too overly long. Probably won't be able to work on it tomorrow, but should be able to get everything finished up within a couple of days. But that did turn out real nice. You can just barely see it blends in, but the weld is a slightly different color than the cast around it. And I sandblasted that after I got it all done, just to try and give it a little bit of texture so it matches a bit better. But you're never going to get it quite right sandblasting it, because the texture on the cast iron is really raised bumps, and the texture you get from sandblasting is, cutting little pits into it. But it blends it out so it doesn't have the really highly polished look. I got one little spot of porosity down there in my weld, but that's one of the problems with flux core wire. I'm tickled to death with that. It turned out good. I managed to keep the line down the side right on both sides. Turned out pretty decent, and that handle looks right. and next week I'll give that away. Give somebody a repaired, rebuilt, rehabilitated skillet. If you do win it, though, I want you to use it hard, maybe abuse it a little bit, not too much, but let me know how that works out for you. And somebody will be getting that next week. Let me back up here a little bit. But yeah, hopefully I should be able to finally get some of these repair videos made. Like I said, I got that, got most of that filmed. So during the week, I'll get it all edited together, and should have it posted within a few days. And people who are channel members will get to see it a couple of days earlier than everybody else. You have two complete John Johnson sets, one in decent condition, the other pitted to hell. Yeah, I think a lot of the bottom sections for the John C. Johnson stuff probably got used for flower pots, because they look like a cast iron flower pot, really. I mean, they got a fairly wide band around the top, the two little handles, and the shape of them. Like I said, this has got a real similar shape to the Johnson bottoms, and I think a lot of them got used for flower pots and planters. So they're tough to find. I mean, you can find kind of random stuff like that, and eventually get some complete sets. But if you're looking for anything specific, you're probably never going to find it. Your flat bottom kettles are unmarked other than the size. The 8 says 811 though, which is a Griswold model number. Tried to email me some pictures. Okay. But yeah, like I said, I like the flat bottom pots. They are pretty handy. And hopefully one of my repair videos, I'm going to have to do some practicing first, because I've been kind of hit or miss with this. I have an old ARC logo Wagner flat bottom pot that somebody drilled holes in the bottom. And being able to fill in holes is a bit tricky. It's been, like I said, it's been kind of hit or miss. I've been fairly successful with it, but I've also had quite a few of them that want to crack around the weld. So, like I said, a little bit more practice on those, and I should be able to pull off that repair. This was actually fairly easy. It's a lot easier to weld heavier cast like this than it is to try and weld up, a crack in the bottom where it's a lot thinner. So I did this one first just to kind of just kind of show the people that you can do it. It's not extremely difficult if you have a little bit of welding skill. I mean, I'm by no means a professional welder or even all that great of a welder, so it can be done, but there's definitely a learning curve to it. You're going to want to get a hold of some scrap, cheap junk pans and break them and weld them and experiment around with it before you try and do anything anything that you want to try and repair. When did Wagner first start making glass lids for Dutch ovens? I think they started that back in the 50s. I know they definitely did them from the 60s on, but I think early to mid 50s is when a lot of cast iron companies started going with glass lids. Wagner, Griswold, BSR. I think they started doing it more with the Lady Best series and the later part of the Century series. But I'm fairly sure it was mid 50s more or less when they first started with it. Since the holidays before the next show, happy Labor Day. Well, happy Labor Day to you too. Hope you didn't pay for a Griswold Abelskever, $50 shipping included. That's pretty good with the shipping, all in with the shipping, because they pretty typically sell for 40 to 60 for them. It kind of goes in spurts. I mean, sometimes I'll see them selling for 35, 40, $45, and sometimes they're up around 65, 70 for the Griswold. So yeah, $50. You didn't overpay. You did pretty good, especially including the shipping on it. Your brazing repair is less than adequate. Brazing is a bit tougher. I mean, it's a lot cheaper to do, and it's fairly easy, kind of ish, but it's a lot harder to get something neat looking, and you can't really grind away too much of the braze on it, because you end up weakening your repair, because brazing is more like gluing something back together, rather than, or it's more like solder or caulk, something like that, where you need to have an area around it adhered to the brazing. Where welding, I mean, you're actually melting it back together with a little bit of filler to fill it in. So it's not quite as strong, but it is pretty strong if you do it right. And but like I say, it's tougher to get a real neat looking braze job. And for the price of it, the supplies and materials for welding cast iron are fairly expensive, and you're never going to get as much for a repaired pan as you were for one that hasn't been broken. But you can fix a family heirloom. If your idiot nephew snapped the handle off great grandma's skillet, you can fix that and have a usable skillet again. And it's a good skill to have if you have a wood stove or something like that, because there's usually some sort of repair that you need to do on a wood stove, or you're gonna have to weld or braze something on that. So hopefully I'll be able to get a series of videos eventually, but I'm just tickled that I finally got a start on the first one. I got a Wagner 14 from your father, decent condition, reseasoning it. What's a pan like that run for sale? I've seen unmarked Wagners number 14s go relatively inexpensive, $50, $60, $70. Usually anything that size is going to cost you 100 and 125 at a minimum, for pretty much any, lesser marked ones. But a marked Wagner, you're looking, $100 on up easy for something like that, 100 to 150, anywhere in there. Kind of depends on who's buying it. The bigger pans especially have really gone up in price. So yeah, generally you're going to be looking at well over 100 for it. It's kind of hard to say exactly. I mean, like I said, it kind of varies. I mean, I've seen some unmarked Wagner ware 14-inch skillets go for 125, and one that's damn near identical to it go for 75. It's just kind of weird, but that's the way it works sometimes. What's that geared apparatus to my left? That is a winch. It's actually it's a capstan type winch where you can wrap the rope around it several times, and as you're wrapping the rope around one side, it'll unwind from the other. So if you have a really long rope, you don't need a big huge spool to wind up the entire rope. You can just pay off rope as you go. And the purpose of getting that was for helping me to pull my well pump, because I got to replace my well pump every 3 to 6 years. Been doing pretty good lately, but it's probably about due to die because I got tons of iron in my water, and it destroys the pumps after a while, no matter what you do with them. But I was going to build a stand for that, and I can set that up over the well casing. I have a rope tied to the pump, so I can just wind my rope up. And actually, to wind it up, you'd have it on the smaller pulley or the smaller gear. Get on there, you. You'd have it on a smaller gear, and you can crank up the rope. A lot easier than hand over hand trying to lift this damn thing up. How much for a glass top Grizz Dutch oven? Hard to say. If it has a marked Griswold glass lid, those go for more. Just the bottom of a Griswold Dutch oven typically goes around $50-$60. If it has a marked Griswold glass lid with it, you probably get around 80-90, maybe as much as 100. I'd say more like 80 or 90 or something like that. Just sold one for $100. Okay. Here, kind of must have missed something here. Was that a Snap Crackle Pop? But I wasn't eating Rice Krispies. That's probably that. Straight cut spur gears like that make a kind of distinctive noise. Makes it a little better if I spin the other side, so it spins a little faster. That's kind of cool. Anyhow, Needy Homesteader. Well, good Lord, woman, it's nice to see you. You actually made one. We're going to have to get back together one of these days and do a show. The last one was pretty fun. I'm sure we could come up with something to entertain the masses. I see your last couple of videos that you posted, but I haven't had a chance to watch them yet. For a Mark Wagner 14 on eBay, had one for $500 or $600, which is crazy. Figured about one or two. Yeah, $500-$600 is pretty nuts. Maybe if it was a very, very early one, like an ARC logo, something made in the 1890s on up to, maybe 1910, then you might start getting up around $300 for something like that. But yeah, 5 or 6 is nuts. If it had a lid with it, yeah, you'd probably, then you'd probably be closer to it. But yeah, that's way more. I think Cast Iron Chaos had a little video, something they showed that they wanted just an insane price for a mismatched. It was a spider skillet, a little 3-legged spider skillet with a BSR camp oven lid. It was fairly good size. Something you should probably be able to get for $100-$150. But they wanted like $575-$600 for it. That's the thing with with a lot of things on eBay, they'll put a ridiculously high starting price on it. Or let's see, trying to catch back up here. Lightning and thundering in Georgia. Well, it's a good place for it. It's been fairly nice around here. The past week was hot and humid and miserable. Almost 100 a couple of days last week. It got pretty decent for the last few though, but it's going to turn hot again this weekend. Let's see, you're trying to get caught back up. Debbie, oh, don't be too worried about being late. Taking a break from auction sites and Goodwill. A Griswold small block hinge Dutch oven and one disappeared. Yeah. And a long griddle ended up with a crack halfway through. Yeah, cracks are kind of the scourge of buying things, even if you can actually examine it in person and look at it. It's easy to miss cracks sometimes under a lot of buildup. Looking at all the cute emojis and the cool things that I play with. Yeah, I mean, I do a lot of interesting things here. You see my winch. Like I said, I'm really tickled with the way that turned out. Got her all painted up nice. Got that from your Goodwill wants so much money for everything. Yeah, some of the stores have really gone nuts. $3 for a used canning jar. The ones around here, they're usually pretty good on their canning jars. They're less than a case of new ones would cost, but they're still more than used ones should. But yeah, I got that from Jeans Antiques and Furniture, and I gotta get back up there one of these weekends when I'm off, because Jeans is an experience. I mean, it's 5 or 6 kind of ramshackle old sheds all strung together, and if it exists, odds are Gene has one, but your odds of finding it are pretty slim. Most of the places you have to kind of walk through sideways between the aisles, but it's just a blast going through there sometimes. The 2 pieces of iron, 2 handguns with leads in them, just trying to be funny. Well, you want to have a little bit of lead in your guns, otherwise they're paperweights. Ever since COVID, the Goodwill pricing has gone insane. Yeah, and sometimes you get somebody that thinks they know something about antiques or anything like that, and they want anything that looks like it's more than 5 years old. They want twice of what it should be. Am I ever off work? You work 24/7. Well, I'm on a rotating shift now, so I'll work like 7 days in a row on third shift, and then be off for a couple of days, and then 7 afternoon shifts, 3 to 11, and then like 2 weeks worth of days, and then you're off for a few days, and it's kind of screwy. Luckily, I've been able to have most Tuesdays off. After the first of the year, we're going to change it, and we're going to go to straight shifts, and I'm more than likely going to wind up working 3 to 11 all the time, but we'll see how it works out. One of the it's going to be 2 guys on each shift, and one of them is you're off every other Tuesday, and I'm going to see if I can get on that. So hopefully we can have at least every other Tuesday, but that's still after the first of the year, and nothing's really set in stone yet. So we'll see what happens with that. What's my favorite piece of cast iron? It's kind of hard to say. I mean, I use pretty much all of them. Probably one of my favorite little frying pans is a little made in Taiwan skillet that I got for a quarter or 50 cents years and years ago at a thrift sale. And it works really nice, but there's a lot of really cool, neat stuff that I have. I mean, I kind of like it all. It's like your kids. You don't really have a favorite. You just have one that's disappointed you the least. Let's see. Favorite bourbon. Right here. Don't say that. We just got him back. Yeah, I had to work last Tuesday, but like I said, we should be good for a little run here anyway for the next 4 or 5 weeks. 4 for sure. I'm pretty sure 5, but I'm not positive. I don't have my schedule right here in front of me. Favorite bourbon? I like Bullet. That's pretty good. Or Wild Turkey 101. Yeah, it's like picking a favorite kid. Needy. Have you had a chance to use those gate mark skillets I sent you? They're a lot lighter than most anything else you'll find. Should be a little easier on your wrists. You're in the low 90s today and tomorrow. Yeah, we're going to be, like I said, we'll be back in the 90s over this weekend. Well, like I said, and in the coming weeks over the next couple of months, I'm going to have a few runs of days off. So hopefully I'll be able to get some more things done. Get some videos made would be really nice. I'm not going to plan on it, but I'm sure hoping a little bit farther ahead than I usually am this time of year. So things look positive, but saying things look positive is usually positively the best way to make them go wrong. William Hurt just got in. Good to see you, William. Where'd my water go? There we go. Yeah, you'll have to make a video one of these days, frying up something in one of them old gate marked skillets. But yeah, I mean, they are real nice. I mean, they're so much thinner and lighter than most anything else you're gonna find for cast iron. The old gate mark stuff, the really early Griswold, the Erie, the really early Wagner, a little bit different alloy, and they can make them a lot thinner to start with. And after they got done grinding out the insides and smoothing them up, made them even lighter still. So it's really surprising sometimes how much lighter some of the really old cast iron is. But there was a little bit more of a problem with it. It was like I say, a little bit different alloy, a little more prone to cracking, warping, things like that. And they're usually made fairly cheap. It's kind of an extra, giveaway. You buy a stove, you get a set of pans to go with it. So they weren't really the most heavily made things to begin with. But what was just something cheap back then is, really kind of desirable now because they are a lot of fun to cook with. I mean, they're so much lighter. You gotta be a little more careful. I mean, you can't go quite as hog wild heating it up as you can with some of the, like a heavy lodge where you don't have to worry about anything going bad on that. Those pans make the best fried potatoes. Yeah, the thin pans really seem to work nice for potatoes. I re-greased a bunch of yours today. I have them sit out in the kitchen using that oven and canning all weekend. Seasoned on top this time, did just fine. Yeah, I've seasoned quite a few pans on top of the wood stove, and that really works nice because I can get a bunch on there and just kind of rotate them around through the hotter part of the stove for a while, and just move them over to the cooler spot, let them cool down, and give them another coat. They work pretty slick. Works pretty slick doing that. I haven't actually tried seasoning on a stovetop on my regular stovetop, but I'm pretty sure you could. And a lot of people do, and they report pretty nice results with it. It's nice, but expensive. Everything is expensive. Yeah, I mean, It's great that people are getting into cast iron again. There's been a big resurgence in it. And, on the one hand, it's great because it is better. I mean, you're not going to have problems with Teflon flaking off or things like that. And it lasts forever. I mean, it never goes bad with even reasonable care. But it also raises the prices on, the vintage stuff. So it's kind of 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. Luis after the live, he's looking for advice on a piece. Okay. Yeah, that's what's nice about doing these things too. I mean, there's tons of stuff that I know, and even more that I don't. And if one of us doesn't know, it's a pretty safe bet that somebody in the chat does. They can rattle off, "Oh yeah, hey, that's what that is." But yeah, next week, we'll definitely do an open stream. I'll put the link out, and whoever shows up and can join in, and you can show some of the stuff you got, or ask questions, or just generally chat. Been trying to fix the speed selector on your grandfather's 1930 ceiling fan. I can do basic electrical stuff, but not a whole lot. I mentioned before, I have a BSR that warps when you heat it up slowly on low heat. Found your unmarked number 7 Lodge does the same. Both have heat rings and will spin in the cool flat. Yeah, it does. The iron does expand, and it'll expand more in the middle than it will out towards the sides because that's where the heat is. So it's going to expand more. And it's pretty normal for pans to, bend and flex and warp a little bit while you're heating them up. And then once they're cooled down, they'll go back to their normal flatness. Where you get into trouble is if you heat them just a little bit too much, that normal flexing and bending will set. I mean, you'll take it past the point where it can't come back to flatness. But yeah, it's not really unusual for them to to wobble a little bit when you're using them. Heavier pans will do it less than light thin pans will, but it still does happen. That's why it's important to heat them up gently, warm them up good before you turn the heat up and start cooking with them. You can also, if it's a real light, thin pan and you want to be really extra careful with it, you can put it in the oven and, preheat your oven to 350, put the pan in there for, 15, 20 minutes before you're ready to start cooking, and then take it out. And that way it'll be heated, entirely through. And then it probably wouldn't do, it won't, it won't warp like that. About a number thing on Etsy, but not cast iron. I guess it all depends on what you buy. I got a nice perch fish cornbread pan. Ah, cool. I've seen that. Yeah, I got. I don't have the perch. I had the bluegill ones, and I made brownies with that, and that's pretty cool. Oh, you remember I showed you that castle-shaped bundt cake pan? I made a cake with that last week or the week before, and I found out there's kind of a cool little feature to that. I'll have to show that to you. Maybe I'll make a cake one of these days. Probably not next week, maybe the week after, and have it ready for the show and show you that. It kind of surprised me. I think it's awesome. We have all the areas covered. Luis with more modern, CIC with with BSR, and you're kind of skipping ahead on me here. Yours truly with Griswold and Wagner and Gate Marks. Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's what's kind of nice about these things. If one guy doesn't know, there's 4 other people that do. But yeah, the one thing I can't do very well is decorate cakes. Usually I just kind of take a tube of frosting with a little tip on it and just kind of put a little smear, little stripes of frosting on it, so you get a little bit of frosting on each piece. And with with that Castle bundt cake pan and that cottage one I got, you don't really want to cover up. It's got all the little details and the things like that. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to mortar that over with frosting and wipe out all the details. But yeah, like I said, we're getting towards fall, so once it gets cool enough, we can start playing around on the cook stove again. That'll be fun. But like I said, I got a lot of organizing to do. Will it be making biscuits soon? Just made smoked blackberry bourbon jelly. That sounds real good. I didn't get much for blackberries this year. I got a few and I ate most of them. Didn't make any jelly, but I got quite a few blackberries, but the birds beat me to most of them. Gonna go back. Your pan's almost finished making pear butter. That sounds good. I used to have a nice little pear tree, but winter killed a few years back. It took forever to get it mature enough to where I was getting pears off of it, but they were pretty good pears. And then it died, so I don't have a pear tree anymore. My apple tree is coming back really nice. I mean, I lost a couple of them, and almost lost a couple others the same winter that killed off my pear tree. But they're coming back pretty good. Next year I should have tons of apples and enough to justify dragging out my cider press again. Because of course the year after I get a cider press, I end up losing a bunch of trees. Dan was out cutting hay. Well, you got to make hay when the sun shines. Haying isn't nearly as much fun as it was back when you had to stack it on the wagon. Round bales are a lot easier. You just pick them up with the tractor instead of having to hump them bales and stack them 6 high on a hay wagon. Smoked anything, you got my attention, yeah. I wanted to try and make I've seen a couple of different recipes for it floating around lately. Corn ribs. You quarter up a cob of sweet corn and roast it. A lot of people will put a little oil on them and put like a rib seasoning on there, a dry rub type of thing, and roast them up. That sounded really good. What's that gizmo? Oh, everybody's got to ask about that's a winch that I've had sitting around for a while and finally got around to fixing it up. Lifted a lot of bale hay. Yeah, I mean, a 12-year-old kid throwing bales around that are bigger than he is. Used to see a lot of that sort of thing, but not so much anymore. It is a lot easier, a lot more efficient to make the great big round bales, but I don't envy anybody that still does them by hand. But yeah, that's a winch I'm going to be using for pulling my well pump. Got to build a stand for it to sit over the top of the well, but other than that, tickled with how it turned out. Anyhow, getting just about 53 minutes. I suppose I could go a couple of more before I call it a day. Heard of corncob jelly? Yeah, I've never made it, but I've heard of it. You can kind of boil down your corn cobs, I think, after you get done canning up corn. Cook down the corn cobs and make jelly out of the liquid. You get the sugar and the sugar and the flavor out of the cobs. Yeah, like I say, I've never tried making it though. I did make a plum blossom jelly this year. That was really good. Kind of missed out on my lilacs. I got lilac bushes, and you can make lilac jelly. I'm going to try that next spring. Did a lot of square bales back in the 70s, but all but a few big rounds nowadays. Yeah, it's like I said, it's a lot easier, a lot less messing around. You can do it one-man operation. It's a lot easier to pick up round bales with a tractor and a bale spear than it is to have to try and find enough help to stack them on the wagon and stack it in the mow. That was the worst part of it. It was mowing hay. Run that in the elevator. It's about 140 degrees up in the hay mow, and you're dragging bales around and stacking them. That was a pretty common experience when I was younger, though. Anyhow, yeah, I think we'll wrap her up here for this week. Yeah, next week we'll do an open show. Go ahead and click on the link when I put it up, and everybody can join in. Bring along anything you want to show or anything you got questions about, and see if we can figure out the answers to your questions. And yeah, that should pretty much do her. Like I said, hopefully I should have that repair video up soon, within the next few days, once I shoot the last little part of it after I get this guy seasoned up. I'm kind of curious to see what it'll look like once it's seasoned. I mean, it shouldn't show too bad where the repair is, but like I said, the weld is a little bit different than the metal around it. So yeah, we'll see how that turns out, and I'll end up giving that to somebody. We'll put that up for a giveaway. And as always, it's been a lot of fun, and I'll see you guys next week. Needy, yeah, if you can make it next Tuesday, we start at 6:30 usually. You can jump in, and yeah, like I said, we'll get that up, and hopefully by then everybody will have seen the repair video on that. And stay safe, and anybody that's got to run from hurricanes, head for high ground. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your night, and I'll see you guys next week.